Yes, ladies and gentlemen, it's Monday, and that means we just finished watching Monday Night Raw, so it's time for the Wrestling Inc. Monday Night Raw after show, and have we got a good one for you. Indy Hartwell got involved. We got a new #1 contender for the world title, and JD McDonough made all of our notes more difficult to write. But before we get into all of that, how are you guys doing? Jimmy, how have you been? You're looking fresh-faced.
Oh, well, yeah, a little bit cleaner shaving, let's put it that way. And it feels cooler when you do this. I didn't realize, I forgot how much heat these things create. Not the wrestling kind of heat, but well, you never know sometimes. Maybe that too.
I don't know. Whenever I'm freshly shaven, I always feel like it's weird when anything touches my face. It becomes like a protective barrier.
The hard part is for the couple of days afterwards when it's starting to grow back in. And, you know, for those of you who are married out there, you go to kiss the wife and all of a sudden she goes, "Ooh, oh, what are you doing?" Prickly
pear, indeed. Justin, how you doing?
See, mine prefers a facial hair. That's why it's thicker than it's ever been lately. I'm good. You know, I'm sometimes back and forth on the beard part, the side part, but I've had the goatee. I've been going the goatee since 2009. Prior to that, it was all baby face, but I've been heel since.
Oh, if I may just jump in here really quickly, because back in the day, the referees in WWE weren't allowed to have facial hair. It was very much frowned upon. But my wife wanted the goatee for our wedding. So I went to JR and I said, "Look, JR, you know, this is the deal. The wife would like the goatee for the wedding, but I can't grow it in like 3 days, you know, as Greek as I am." But so he said, "Okay, let me talk to the boss." So we talked to the boss, and then we went to Steph and we talked to Steph. And then after talking to Vince and everything, they said, "Okay, he can grow the goatee. That's not a problem. But guess what? He can't go back." So I kept the goatee on TV because I was told if I grow the goatee and go on TV with it, I'd keep it.
You know, it probably wasn't handled this way, Jimmy, but I love the thought of there being an email thread that Jim Ross has got going between Vince McMahon and Stephanie McMahon, and it's titled Korderas' facial hair. I just love that thought.
Oh, I could just imagine, because that all happened at a TV because everybody was there, right? You know what I mean? So it was easy to do, but yeah.
Was it awkward? Everyone like looking at your face going, I don't know. What are we going to do? What are we going to do with that face of yours, Jimmy?
It was a little bit of that. Well, how come he gets to grow one? And I said, "Well, I can't shave it off now. That's the only problem." And they went, "Oh."
Jimmy getting that special treatment all the time, as always.
Yeah.
But excited to be back here. I was off last week. Unfortunately, for anyone who didn't see, my poor doggy laid to rest last week. So a little very sad about that. I'm gut wrenching about that, but I appreciate all the kind words everyone sent over. Russell would have loved it. And stalking you whenever you roll through, I'll make sure to double highlight your little doggy emoji this week in honor of my boy Russell here. But I don't want to bring the mood down. I want to get back into the mood of pro wrestling. And we got some news this week, guys, that came in through through Twitter. I saw it blew up. This is some of the biggest chatty news that we've had in a little bit here. It was reported that CM Punk and Ryan Nemeth got into an argument on Dynamite in June, and basically Punk was mad at Nemeth, inferring that he was soft on Twitter after the counterfeit Bucks promo. Fightful Select confirmed this happened, with Punk saying the promo was a work, but thought Nemeth's comment was trying to score points with the Elite, and it was divisive. But in the end of the day, apparently they shook hands. There's still tension, though, also apparently, as the report says that Punk doesn't want Nemeth on Collision, even if it's in catering. And it was reported that Punk was a significant factor in Nemeth being booked and then changing to be sent home from Collision. Then during the Wrestling Observer Radio, Meltzer and Alvarez said that they had heard that it wasn't just him, but also Matt Hardy and Christopher Daniels and Adam Page as well. And of course, Punk cut a promo on Adam Page after Collision recently. Justin, this to me, this whole thing going all the way back to Brawl Out is starting to have shades of Bash at the Beach to me, where we're going to be wondering what was real and what wasn't for a very long time. And maybe we'll never know.
And yet all of this conflict and controversy that the entire AEW universe knows about, and we're not making money off one damn thing. Where CM Punk goes, drama follows. Tell me when I'm telling lies. So what, is he now the doorman at Collision? He stands at the door, you line up at the velvet rope, and he decides, oh, nope, oh, you're booked, nope, we got a flight for you to go back home. Because that's literally what it sounds like has happened with several guys, is that they showed up and were told, maybe not told why, but we're just told, hey, no, you're not needed anymore, go back home. And all of them are believing to be, or I guess in the case of Nemeth, that it's because. So now I guess when you watch Saturdays, you can write down and keep score. Those talents you see on Saturdays, Punk's okay with them. Everybody else, there's your mystery.
Jimmy, this is, I don't know about your friends and family or who you talk about pro wrestling with, but for the people I talk about with pro wrestling with, they seem divided. Half of them say this is all just a work. Half of them say that there's issues that need to be taken care of. I'm still in the boat. I have no idea what's going on. But I do feel like if this is a work, it doesn't feel like it's going very well, because it doesn't feel as just, I don't feel like I want to spend money on this. It just makes everyone look bad, in my opinion.
Yeah, exactly. And as Justin said, nobody's making money off of this. And yes, I get it. You want to build to that moment where people go, oh, I got to tune in now because this is happening. This, like you said, Jack, feels like it is dividing the audience, so to speak. Like you said, half think it's they're working everybody, and the other half think, you know what, this is all legit. I think some people think they may be working things, but when you let the inmates run the asylum, this is what you can possibly get. The one thing about WWE, like it or not, you knew who the guy in charge was, and you didn't want to upset him because he wasn't afraid of any of his talents, to be honest with you. Yes, there were ones he favored, of course, because those were the ones that, made money for him. So obviously he's going to gravitate towards them, but at the same time, they all knew he was the boss. But now we have a situation here where there seems to be no locker room leader in the AEW locker room. For example, like at SmackDown, we had The Undertaker, and he didn't choose to be the locker room leader. The locker room chose him. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? So,
right.
Like, oh man, like Justin said, I don't know what's true and what's not, but the bad thing is this is catering on the internet to a certain audience, and the mass audience doesn't know a thing about it. So who's benefiting?
Yeah, I just, assuming this is, like I said, assuming this is all real and that this stuff's really happening, I think, well, if you're cutting these promos and no one knows it's supposed to be part of a work or something, then you got to tell people that's what you're doing. Otherwise, it's no different than what Nemeth said about Punk on Twitter. Like, maybe that was a work. Who knows? Right? If it's a very dangerous thing to do, but if it's all part of the show, it just makes me feel rotten on both sides. I don't feel like the Elite come off looking cool that CM Punk is making fun of them. And I don't think CM Punk looks cool continuing to take these shots at guys who aren't reciprocating in any way. Or at least on the TV shows. I don't, to be fair, I don't watch Being the Elite, so I don't know if they're doing stuff on there, but it's just, I don't know. It just feels, I don't know. I'm not into it. Just not feeling it.
Jack, if some of the participants involved are treating it like it's a work, not everybody is, and therefore you're not going to get anywhere.
Right.
If Punk thinks that he's gonna take some shots at Hangman Page in a promo that airs after they go off the air, if he thinks it's going to drum up, some underground buzz to get this backstage controversy out into the ring and all and to sell paper, then everybody needs to be on board. But it clearly doesn't seem that that's the case.
Right.
It's just, and again, like Jimmy said, that on the flip side, WWE, there's always, you always knew who was in charge. Like, at what point? I mean, how vulnerable and weak of a leader can you make yourself look if you're Tony Khan? I don't care. You could be as passionate as you want to be. That's fantastic. Everybody dreams about being a wrestling super fan as we all are and having $1 billion able to have your own company. It's great, awesome. But you have to run it and lead it. And it feels like he just has people that are just running all over him, and he's not standing up to them and taking control of the situation. I mean, clearly. I mean, Punk came back in the middle of June, so we're 2 months in, and we're back to where we were almost at this time last year with just a whole lot of stuff going on behind the scenes. That again, nobody's. You know what? If you want to get Punk and Hangman out there for the show at Wembley. All right, let's get some pay-per-view buys out of it. But that doesn't seem like that's happening. Punk's more interested in working with the talent that he sees value in from a wrestling standpoint, because he thinks they're good wrestlers. That ain't moving the needle the way that this stuff would if everybody could just get in a room and get on the same page. But it doesn't look like that's going to happen.
Right.
And maybe and who knows? Maybe Punk wants it to happen, but maybe the elites don't trust him. Maybe they don't want anything to do with it. Maybe they are resentful of the fact that he's still there and that he wasn't let go. I don't know, but clearly not everybody's on the same page, and you're not going to make you're just paddling upstream.
Jimmy, is there since you've obviously been at a lot of wrestling shows in your time, probably more than most people on planet Earth, is there something to people showing up? Let's say they're booked, they fly out to the arena, they get there. Is it common, or does it happen that they're told, hey, we don't need you, go ahead and go right back home? Or like, is this one of those things that happens all the time, but because of the situation we're blowing it out of proportion? Or is this weird?
No, sending someone home from after flying in, it usually what happens is, if they're not being used, for whatever reason, whether it's like personal or whether it's just, they're not written into the show, they are still encouraged to stick around, because card is subject to change. They may need them for something, or somebody might come up with an idea and say, hey, you know what? Is so-and-so still here? Let's use them for a backstage segment in an interview or something like that. So you took the time to fly someone out there. Why would you send them back home? If this is a big elaborate work, it's costing money as opposed to making money, which makes no sense whatsoever.
Yeah, that's and to me, that's again, if this is all happening the way it's being presented, that's where not only is it costing the company money, but I believe that's where I'd be really frustrated. It's one thing, okay, you're a wrestler, you're taking shots at people on the microphone or whatever. That's one thing, but like, now you've taken me away from my family and had me fly out somewhere, and I'm away from my family, I'm away from what I could be doing, and now you're just sending me back. Like, that to me is not just disrespectful, but it's also costing people time and money, which is the worst thing you could do to somebody, I think.
No, absolutely. And if it is CM Punk, the one who's causing all this commotion, usually it takes two to tango. But if it is really CM Punk, the instigator, the one stirring the pot here, sometimes you have to, what's the proper phrase? I want to say it correctly. Sometimes you have to let something go. Regardless of the fact, like, yes, he is a very prominent figure, but at the same time, for the overall good of your organization, sometimes you may have to trim the fat, so to speak.
Right. And so before we get into the show, we do have a super chat from Grandma Daisy. Thanks so much for coming through, saying Evil Doink Hardcore Holly 2024 Hall of Fame. Already getting in those Hall of Fame bids in there. Grandma Daisy, thanks so much for that. But Shelbowski, haven't even read it yet. I'm just going to throw it up here. Let's see if it works out. Super chat from Shelbowski, friend of the show, says, off topic comment, but do you guys know why both AEW and WWE come all the way west to Calgary, but both companies avoided major markets like Vancouver? Does Vancouver have heat? It's happened twice now. Jimmy, you would know.
No, that I couldn't tell you the reason for not going to Vancouver, especially you're up in Canada, but they are working their way eastward. I know, well, WWE is, because they're going to be here in Toronto on Friday for SmackDown, and then they're heading to Ottawa, Montreal, and Ottawa for Raw. So I understand why they're heading this way, heading east as opposed to west. As for why they haven't done Vancouver, I wish I had a good reason to tell you why. Just didn't work out in the booking plans. What can I tell you?
Yeah, I'm sure something like that is a much bigger question, like what venues are available and costs and things like that. Probably gets, I'm sure scheduling things like that is a very gnarly, confusing process.
And I will give you this. I know they were in Calgary, and yes, Vancouver is the next province over, but it is a hike through the mountains to drive the equipment from Calgary to Vancouver. So you do have to go across the mountains. Like if you're coming from Seattle, for example, south in the US, it's a lot easier to get to Vancouver.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I know Vancouver's a popular place for Hollywood to shoot. I know that, like, you know, a lot of times there's financial incentives to go to Vancouver and things are shot there. So I don't know. You'd think that would also maybe lend itself to an entertainment juggernaut like WWE to be there, or AEW. But like Jimmy said, I've never been to Vancouver, but as he described and I've heard, it's not necessarily the easiest trek. I also know flight wise, like at least from the east where like I'm at currently, and maybe some talent are coming from if they live in Florida or wherever, like you can sometimes fly in flights cheaper to Paris than you can to Vancouver. So I don't know if an economics thing came in. I don't know, but that's a great question. But Jimmy's point, I guess wherever you start west, you're going to keep moving east at that point.
Yeah, as a guy who grew up near Seattle and of course live on the West Coast now, I just wish in general companies came over to the West Coast more often. But I also get it; they're all way over there. It's expensive,
and you got to remember too. You know, like you said, time wise, you know, if you're going live at 8 o'clock Eastern, that's what are we talking here? Five.
Yeah,
a little tougher, but
yeah,
they've done it before.
So yeah, we're going to get into this show and this episode. Of course, as always, I want to thank everyone who's with us. Make sure to like, comment, share, subscribe. Hit us with a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts. We also have I believe the survey is still up in the description, so you can take that and let us know what you think of the show. If you're in the chat, if you're lurking, shout out to all my lurkers out there, but thanks to everyone who's chatting as well. Sid Fishy, that's a name I haven't seen before, but BPE, Baby Ice, Stephen Camp. We have Blue Chew, KOD, Dylan Matthew, Shelbowski, Burner Account, Duca J, of course, Tuck Graff, John Jordan, Huffman Elite Training, Ricky Zaldabar, and so many more. Thank you guys. Big John, appreciate you. Big John in the house of all things. Good to see you guys. Again, like, comment, share, subscribe. And also, it was mentioned in one of the comments on YouTube. Let me know that sometimes too many comments get thrown up. Usually I just throw up most of the comments just because I like to highlight people. But let me know if you feel like maybe they come up and they become distracting. Someone had mentioned it might be distracting. So let me know if you think they're distracting. Otherwise, I'll say stuff like, I'll just throw up a lurker here from DJ. But until then, let's talk about this show already. We start with Judgment Day. Judgment Day comes out with Finn Balor, and they say, hey, things haven't been good, but we're trying to make it right. And so JD McDonough comes out and tries to make peace, but Rhea isn't having it and says they don't take orders from anybody. That's when Sami Zayn comes out and brawls with JD, who gets no help from the Judgment Day. It eventually goes into a match that JD works the arm as much as he can, but it eventually comes down to Sami Zayn getting the win. Justin, we see more and more dissension in Judgment Day, but more and more JD poking his head in.
Well, I thought it was appropriate to see JD McDonough because, I mean, look, he takes out Sami Zayn last week in a backstage, and he's the guy right now that Finn Balor trusts. So, it would have been weird if we didn't have JD McDonough on this episode. So I'm glad we did. Gave him a little bit of an opportunity to have a live promo. Not the best out there, but he said what he had to say. And the match was really good. I mean, it's a very simple match to do. You're just working Sammy's elbow, which legitimately is got some bursitis into it and looks pretty crazy. If I can Monday morning quarterback here, Monday morning book, or Monday night book, I guess. I think that there would have been a real case here to have JD get the win. I mean, this is his first TV match on Raw that I can recall. Obviously, if you watch NXT, you know him, but this is his first match on Raw, which so largely for some audience, first time seeing him in a ring. And I think with the fact that Sammy's injured, legitimately injured, he's out there braced up and everything. I think between the injury and between some cheating heel tactics, no harm, no foul. If JD gets gets booked to win here, It's a win for him. Sammy's not going to look, nobody's going to think any less of Sami Zayn. And as JD's kind of on this, like, campaign quest to maybe try to get in the Judgment Day, so to speak, I think it helps his case. So that's my booking critique. Again, we have the hindsight 2020 luxury, but but overall, I thought it was a very entertaining starting promo and starting match.
My camera and my setup is not giving me any love today, you guys. My camera's cutting out. My Siri keeps popping up. I don't know what's going on here, but I'm going to fight through it here. Jimmy, what was your take on this? And what was your take on JD McDonough getting kind of his first big reps on Raw here against one of their biggest stars?
No, he did get a lot of reps, but we often talk on here, and like you said, Justin, maybe it's easy to Monday night or Monday morning quarterback and say, I agree with you that, a very heelish victory for JD McDonough would have helped him immensely. But in the case here, Sammy was booked to go over. Okay, I get that. They had a heck of a match. I like the Sammy selling and the whole bit and all that sort of stuff. But JD didn't get over without going over, as we say. He didn't get elevated. He didn't, like I said, it was a good match, but it didn't do him any favors. And you could tell the biggest tell was the crowd. Mm-hmm. The crowd at no point during the match, it seemed like, had an idea that this is, it's something for them to invest in. I mean, Later on, we could talk about what happens later, but at the same time, during this match, which again, don't get me wrong, I thought it was a good match. It just didn't hit the right notes from a storytelling standpoint, if you get my drift.
Yeah, I like what you mentioned about the, not going over in this situation, because he's in a story where he's kind of trying to be in with the Judgment Day, but he's not really doing anything that would make me think, if I'm the Judgment Day, maybe we should make an exception. I mean, if he gets a win over Sami Zayn, then him hanging out makes you go, okay, I don't like this guy, but he's at least getting wins. But if he's losing, then I'm like, well, yeah, I don't want this guy on the team. He's a loser. So, yeah, I wasn't sure about that. Justin, one last thing on this, and I know we'll talk about more about the finish here, but as I was kind of thinking about this, Finn is clearly a bad guy, firmly rooted there. And there seems to be a drive between him and Priest, but it seems like Rhea and Dom, who are also clearly bad guys, are teaming more with Priest than they are with Finn. If this group splits, can they both be bad guys in the end? Like, I feel like it's going to be, if it splits, it's going to be a weird situation, right?
Yeah, because you assume that if there is a split, that it eventually leads to a payoff match, that it leads to, Priest and Finn, they finally, all this tension and miscommunication that's been bubbling up and eventually boils over, that you got to have a match. So I mean, it might be the rare situation in WWE that you have a heel versus heel match and the audience accepts it, because not so much that they're necessarily going to be cheering either one as a babyface, but they just want to see these, this goon squad of Judgment Days, wreaking terror on everybody for so long. And Dom is such a heel, and Rhea's Rhea, and they might just want to see them come to blows, and they're just going to cheer that they're beating each other up. So heel versus heel is a very tricky thing, as is face versus face. But this might be a situation where you get away with it because it's been slow played, and it's being done with a group that has been the top TV occupying group on Monday nights for a year. But I do agree, you're right, the dynamics are unusual, but some of that makes it kind of fun, because it's not traditional. It's a little bit of there's a lot. And then JD's a heel, he's the outside factor now, he's a so
right. And JD, very hard to root for too. I mean, like, Damian is clearly, like, he's a bad guy, but he's kind of cool. Like, you kind of want to root for him. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So if he made the switch, he wouldn't have to change a whole lot. And you'd still be like, yeah, but Damian Priest is cool. I like him. Mm-hmm. But we move on, and Chelsea Green wants to hold Chelsea's Got Talent to find a new partner. Caden and Katana, they're like, yeah, we'll give you some time to find a partner. Piper Niven says, I'm your new partner. Jimmy, I absolutely loved every single second of this, but what are your thoughts on Piper Niven, new tag team champion?
I don't recall ever seeing a new tag team partner introduce themselves to the team in such a fashion. It was a unique way of doing it, and it was fun. It was different. You can make the argument, wow, wait a minute, they didn't make it really official here with Adam. No, you can see that it was fun. Let's put it that way. It was a fun way to do it. It was different, and it's a nice little spot here for Piper Niven.
Yeah,
she made an impact immediately by doing this.
Yeah, and Justin, I was going to say, this is one. I think we're all fans of Piper Niven on this show as the new champ. But I love that Dewdrop song though. But this is going to add a really fun new dynamic to Chelsea Green's character as well.
Yeah, I'm for this. I would not be for Dewdrop getting the vacant tag title, but I am for Piper Niven. I like it because you can actually even take it steps further. The dynamic that they were going for with Sonya and Chelsea, where Sonya's kind of the serious badass and Chelsea's the can I talk to your manager kind of complaining one, and then the same thing here, even more so Piper, because she can look even more dominant just on her size and stature. So I like the impact, as Jimmy said. I can't ever recall an introduction quite like this for and this is where to take the popular phrase, next man up, next woman up. Sonya got hurt. You got to keep going. I'm glad they're not punishing Chelsea by taking the tag titles off of them both. So yeah, I'm all for to see where this goes. I just hope, it seems like there's a curse in the dark cloud that's been following these women's tag titles around. I just hope that nothing, I hope everybody stays healthy and nothing freak happens here in the next few weeks to further call an audible.
Yeah, I think this is going to be so much fun with these two, because now Chelsea's got some muscle too, that when she wants something, she has someone who can make it happen. Sonya could have been that, but I don't think her character necessarily was playing that, if that makes sense, where Piper definitely is the, if you're not going to call your manager, I'm going to do something person in this situation, which will be really fun to see. It'll be fun to see her maybe bully Chelsea a little bit. Speaking of Chelsea, a lot of people are talking about Matt Cardona in the chat as well. Quick plug. I got to chat with Matt Cardona here for Wrestling Inc. So if you want to see that interview, check it out on Wrestling Inc. It's on the YouTube page somewhere. Go look for it. You know how to use YouTube. You're here now, so go do it. We got a very interesting segment here, a couple segments that sort of ran together. I'm going to go through them real quick and then we'll backtrack. But Imperium. We get a video of an Imperium that reminds us that Gunther is a very dominant Intercontinental Champion, and we're 25 days away from him breaking the all-time record, I believe they said. Now, I guess the only thing that stands between him and that is Chad Gable. Alpha Academy comes out, challenges Giovanni Vinci. Ludwig Kaiser runs down the Academy and spits some game to Maxine before we get Gable versus Giovanni. Gable gets the win there, and then we get Otis versus Gunther. Gunther gets the win there before Alpha Academy chases him off. Justin, for a long time, Judgment Day was sort of holding the most of Raw together, but it feels like Imperium has taken that role now.
Well, I don't know about taking the role, but they certainly have. They're there. They're occupying some segments. I mean, yeah, and they teased. Vinci's just been disappointing Gunther, and so they really kind of teased at the and then they kind of pick it back up to something they did early in the summer that they then kind of abandoned, is the teasing of Vinci being out. So there's that drama there. As you said, Gunther's approaching the Honky Tonk Man's record. Look, but I gotta say, it feels, again, this IC title, both Gunther and the time that's been put into his title reign, and also they're building Chad Gable up, and he feels like I personally, I think they're this close. I don't see them taking the title off of Gunther, but I can see to an audience of making people believe and get behind Chad Gable as they are. I can see how, a couple good false finishes, you might get people to bite and pop and think, oh, this is the end. It feels like it could be, a co-main event. I had thought earlier in the night that wow, okay, the next, again, PLEs here in Pittsburgh, it's Payback. This could be one of the top featured matches. Is can Gunther get to, he's got to go through Chad Gable. But they announced that it's actually going to happen next week. Now, whether or not it actually happens in earnest, or whether, Vinci and Kaiser beat the hell out of Gable before he even makes it to the ring, and that then has to delay the match to Payback, and maybe there's a gimmick or something to help keep it honest. We'll see. But whenever it happens, it feels like this is main event quality for all the reasons I said.
Now, everyone in the chat, let me know if I'm right about the 25 days for Gunther before he breaks the record. And when is Payback? Is that before or after that 25-day mark?
It'd be before. Payback's Saturday or Labor Day weekend, so September 2nd.
Okay, so that means, Payback could actually be, if you have Chad Gable versus Gunther for the Intercontinental title at Payback, knowing that the record is right around the corner, that to me is must see. That's price of admission, because you might see him basically clench the all-time record, or you might see it end just short. And I love seeing records broken, but at the same time, I'd kind of like to see Gunther just lose it, getting so close and falling short. Jimmy, what say you?
You can make an argument for either way. And like you said, it's all on how you build that momentum heading into, like we said tonight, 25 days until that record is broken. And you just keep counting that down. And I know it sounds bad, but you just pound it in there and just make sure that the audience is aware that we're getting this close to this record held for so long by the Honky Tonk Man, and use ways to get around it. Like you said, next week, it's supposed to be the match between, Gunther defending against Chad Gable. Maybe something happens during the match and we don't get the match, which continues the story going forward, leading to a specific type of match. Let's say that we had recently an MMA rules match. Why not have them take the ropes down and have kind of like an amateur wrestling style match? Yeah, that would be different. That would be different.
And that crowd will be so behind Chad Gable. But Justin, you were about to say?
I was going to say, if my math is right, so I believe 25 days from now would be Friday, September 8th. So it would be the Friday after, 6 days after Payback.
Right.
So yeah, I mean Payback, or then the Raw on September 4th, Labor Day Raw.
Yeah,
would be the last line of defense for Gunther to lose it. But you know what? I'm going to say he's had it this long, this dominant. Smart, wise. It's known that he is somebody who Triple H really likes and values. I can see why. I don't think there's a ton of people in Stanford that are shake, rattle, and rolling and want to protect the Honky Tonk Man's legacy in the record book. So I think that they're fine with crossing out Honky's name and putting somebody new on the record book for the IC title.
It'd be interesting to see Honky Tonk Man somehow get involved or do something with this, but I'm not holding my breath for it.
What if he shows up and a guitar shot is the reason he loses that championship? Just say it. I don't know.
Yeah.
Well, I want to see Otis shake, rattle, and roll with him.
Oh,
yeah. Well, Otis, I do want to ask real quick, you guys. Jimmy, I'll start with you. Giovanni Vinci has Gunther's been great. Ludwig's been great. Giovanni Vinci hasn't done anything wrong, but the other two seem to be shining. Did he help himself and do himself any favors tonight, Jimmy?
Storyline wise, no. But the other thing that he's not helping himself with is he hasn't been vocal at all. Mm-hmm. And you need to be an all-around player for people to get behind you or to want to boo you, whatever the case may be. People are not buying into Vinci, in my opinion, because they're not hearing anything from him. And we saw that Ludwig was able to speak tonight and get some reaction from that crowd, which was at times hard to get a reaction from tonight in Winnipeg. But, and Gunther, of course, you hear him on the mic. You don't hear from Vinci at all.
Yeah, it's like, a few months ago, it was like, okay, you had Gunther, and then I literally just summed it up as, here's your two henchmen that have European names. Mm-hmm. Kaiser has managed to carve out a niche with the way that he introduces Gunther, the way he walks, even the way he talks. And, Vinci is he's just very generic. Now, I mean, I'm not suggesting, he take on like a stuttering gimmick. Shout out Matt Morgan. But we need something. I need to somehow be able to hear his voice in my head. I can hear Kaiser's voice now.
Yeah,
I can't. If I shut my eyes and you give me a usual suspects lineup, I can't pick Vinci out of a lineup.
One thing I heard about wrestlers that you should always think about is like if you were to digitally just turn them into a black silhouette as they were walking out to the ring or doing something, could you tell who they are simply by the silhouette? And I think that that's one of the things I miss with Giovanni Vinci. Now, Kaiser, you instantly know who that is, the way he walks and the way he carries himself. And there's a lot of people who have that, but I do think Giovanni Vinci needs something to sort of make him seem different.
He needs to stand out in the airport.
Right
now, if I'm standing next to him at baggage claim, I'm not batting an eye.
You're just saying, there's another gym guy.
Right. But
unless I'm meeting my Cinnabon from the airport. And as I look at that guy, I'm like, oh man.
If I see Kaiser in his full-on strut and I hear him talking as he's trying to find his bag at the badge claim, I'm taking notice.
Right.
For my comic book movie nerds out there, I was watching today and I was thinking Gunther's very much the Thanos, but Ludwig's very much the Loki, where he's maybe not as dangerous, but he's something about him is charismatic and fun, and you're interested in what he's doing. And him hitting on Maxine in such a gross way is just great. Like he just seems like a horrible person. And I think you got money with Ludwig. Obviously you got it with Gunther, but I think you got money with Ludwig. I think he's going to have you could do some very good things with him, I think.
Yeah. He upped his value tonight. Let's put it that way.
Yeah. And so we move on to Drew McIntyre and Matt Riddle. They decide to be a tag team. The Glass Bros, I guess they're going by. Drew wasn't really eager to be a tag team partner, but Matt Riddle somehow convinced him to do it. They have a match with the Viking Raiders. They get the win. Later, they're talking about being tag team champs when the New Day, complete with white folding chairs on top of all pop culture, as they always are, say that they want to have a match next week. Justin, I'll be honest, the whole time I was waiting for Drew McIntyre to claymore Matt Riddle. Was I the only one?
No, I kind of was. It's an oddball pairing, but look, we've seen oddball pairings. Daniel Bryan, Kane, Riddle, Randy Orton, MJF, Adam Cole. It tends to work in a certain magic. So it is what it is. Shout out to Michael Cole, who he had the best in the suggestion box for the tag team name of the Scottish Highlanders.
Michael Cole. That's why he's the GOAT.
He popped Wade Barrett if you go back and listen to it.
Right.
Michael Cole's been on another level for the past few years. He's really turned. He's always been good, but I think he's really turned it to another level here. Jimmy, do you like the pairing of Matt Riddle and Drew McIntyre as a team? Let's say they're not breaking up. Let's say they're going to go the distance for a little bit. Do you like it?
Yeah, I don't mind it. Two different, when you talk about two different personalities, you couldn't get any more different than those two. That's for sure. The only question I have is the backstage segment with them and the New Day. Here we got, again, two babyface tag teams, and they want to fight each other on TV for a spot against the tag team champions or whatever the case may be. Who do I cheer for? You know what I mean? Yeah. As a fan, who do I want to see win? But that's the whole lot. We talk about, getting fans invested. It's a weird kind of dynamic with these two teams, unless somebody, breaks out and does a little something different. But other than that, I find the team very entertaining. And that line by Cole, yes, like you guys said, was fantastic. I'm looking forward to seeing what happens with these guys. And I'm curious to see how the reaction is next week with these two teams facing each other on Monday night.
It'll be interesting to see how the crowd reacts for sure. Do we know how long Kevin Owens is out for, and how long Sammy's going to be kind of? Because I was thinking, as we got these tag teams and they're kind of stuck with the tag team champs being injured. And obviously, if they're going to be back in a week or two, then no big deal. But like if it's going to be a long time, then it might be a little bit of an issue long term. But Viking Raiders seem to be having trouble getting going, but there's a lot of other tag teams going right now. So I guess it's good. Indy Hartwell, she gets a little promo package, and then it looks like she's going to end up getting a shot at Rhea Ripley since Raquel Rodriguez is still injured. Hartwell gets a little bit of an offense in, but this is really the Rhea show. And Rhea gets the win. Candice and Hartwell team up to take Rhea out after the match before running off. Maybe don't take her out, but stop her from beating up Indy Hartwell. Jimmy, is it a good thing or a bad thing that Indy Hartwell found herself across the ring from Rhea Ripley in her essentially debut? I think she was on before, but this feels like a re-debut.
Yeah, because this was a spotlight match. So for her to shine a little bit in this match, would a little bit more at least, put it that way. But it was very much an enhancement match for Rhea. You know what I mean? For her to get a dominant win. Is there no one else on that women's roster that could have fit in that spot better, especially when you got someone, like you said, almost a debut situation, and you want her to make an impact. And you could tell, again, the crowd told the story there. They were quiet through this whole thing.
Well, I mean, I think, Justin, because they knew the outcome in this one. But I will say, I do think going into this match, I was thinking it's been a while since we've seen Rhea destroy someone in the ring. It felt like, Justin. I mean, Indy, unfortunately, drew that straw, but I think Rhea kind of needed this kind of win, right?
Yeah, we've seen her, attack Liv, and those the disguise because Liv, I think, was injured, and we've seen her, attack Raquel, and Raquel's, So yeah, I mean, you got to give the people a match, especially Rhea didn't have a match at SummerSlam, so give the people a match. But yeah, it was very much just kind of a glorified squash match, and I'm a fan of Raquel. Raquel, she's got a real babyface quality to her, to where I don't think right now. But I think that if they can keep momentum with her, even if she fails to beat Rhea now, I think she has something. She really has a sparkle, and that sounds really weird, but she has. There is a blossoming it factor I could get with Raquel that I could see her being a baby, and then maybe come back around Mania season next year. You built up the proper thing, and it's like now she is a threat to Rhea. I really feel Rhea is in a class of her own. We've seen her work Charlotte. We've seen, it's almost like, I mean, Trish is a heel right now, but it's almost like I need like a really bona fide Hall of Famer to go up against Rhea for me to even feel any bit of Rhea being a threat. Rhea just feels like she's on another level. I had a conversation the other day with somebody who's a very, very casual fan that literally is just kind of like coming back in because they're hearing some of the buzz of WWE and pro wrestling right now. And they asked me about, I think I'm paraphrasing, but what's the story with that goth girl? She looks like she kicked most of the dude's ass. And it's like, yeah, she has a little bit of that special aura that China kind of had, of like, she's just something different. She doesn't look like all the other girls. She looks like she could hang and probably beat some of the dude's ass. But then from a visual just standpoint, she's still, attractive, and you got to see her for those. It's like you can't turn away from her. You want to see her kick somebody's ass. You want to see her whisper into Dirty Dom's ear. You'll want to see her, right? And that's it's a visual business. Again, she is the ultimate airport test when you see her. I mean, so she's just firing on all cylinders, and the WWE's going to have to do some work on trying to generate anybody with real serious intentions to beat her. I don't know how to say it,
I mean, yeah, I think looking at the Raw roster right now, I think really you've got Becky, you've got, I mean, I don't know where Shayna's supposed to be in all this, but she did just beat Ronda Rousey, so I guess she'd be considered someone who's up there.
It feels like they've gone right back to having Shayna be a heel,
right? Even
though she kind of came off as the face to the crowd in that one, but it feels like they've gone right back to her being heel, and she probably serves better as a heel, quite frankly. Right. So.
I mean, then of course Raquel, but Raquel, I feel like you got to save, with all due respect to Payback in your hometown, Justin. I feel like Raquel Rhea is a big four kind of matchup.
Right.
Yeah.
So you got to hold that one off, and I think you can only do so many videos where like you're still not cleared, Raquel. So yeah, interesting spot to be in. I guess a good spot to be in, but tough spot there. Rhea's a star, though. I mean. Good spot to be in. Have someone who's too big of a star is always a good sign. We got Shinsuke Nakamura coming out and says that he basically attacked Seth Rollins because he wants a title shot. Seth Rollins comes out and says, okay, no problem. And then Nakamura whispers something to Rollins and it rattles him before Shinsuke kicks him in the face. Justin, you said something about this segment on Twitter, and I think we kind of had the similar process watching this? Kind of walk me through what you thought during this segment.
Yeah, so obviously that's the question. Why does he turn? And they I was a little surprised. First off, they put Nakamura out there for a live interview with Michael Cole.
Mm-hmm.
He's not known for Nakamura's not known for his electrifying promos. He's known for his electrifying body language and his performance in the ring. But so that caught me right there. So all right, pressure's on. You're live. At first I thought it was just kind of lazy. Michael Cole's asking him the basic questions, and Nakamura is answering long-winded in Japanese, given maybe a little bit of shorthand English of "I want the title." It just felt like, okay, here's the lazy. He speaks English is not his first language, so we're gonna have him speak that language. Nobody in the Winnipeg speaks Japanese, so nobody understands. Like, it just felt kind of lazy. It's like, this is really. Seth comes out, and then it picked up. Seth saying, "You beware what you wish for. You want it, you got it." And then Nakamura whispering something that gets in Seth Rollins, who is this, eccentric character, gets in Seth's head, and Seth really sold it with the facial expressions. Props to him, props to the cameraman, props to the truck for grabbing. He sold it. And commentary did their narration too. And then Nakamura attacks him. And so now I'm like, okay, we got a title match coming inevitably. What did he say? What could he have possibly said that got Seth Rollins jarred like that? So It seemed lazy at the start. Now I'm actually really interested in this segment for next week. I'm really interested to hear the next advancement of this. Hope they follow up and give me something that I feel worthwhile. But it went from lazy to, okay, I'm on the hook.
Yeah, Jimmy, what do you think Shinsuke said? And do you think did he tell Seth Rollins what exactly Brock Lesnar was mad at Cody about?
No, I wish, again, that's the magic of this whole segment. Everybody, like Justin said, you're watching it and you're going, okay. Yeah, they're doing their deal. And so, and that, like, the big thing was not just the whisper, but like Justin said, the reaction, how he reacted to what was said. And it threw him completely off, and he dropped his guard, which was enough for Shinsuke to hit that, what's he called the kick? Kinshasa. Yeah. And lay him out again. And it got people going, ooh. And like you said, the one thing that's coming out of that whole thing was, I want to find out not only what happens when these two get in the ring, but I want to know what the heck he said to him. It's going to come out eventually. It has to leak out, or but maybe they can tease it for a little while.
Shin whispered, "It's X, not Twitter."
What? No. Everyone in the chat or everyone who's watching this later, leave a comment and let us know what you think Shinsuke said to Seth Rollins. In fact, let us know what he probably didn't say, but it's funny. Leave a funny comment about what Shinsuke may have said to Seth Rollins to rattle him that way. But this is what
Jimmy Korderas is going to have a shaved goatee tonight.
That would make sense. That would rattle Seth Rollins.
Triple J is coming back tonight.
What?
There it is.
It's like, I got to get back to the computer so I can watch.
Right.
The most heel thing that Shinsuke ever did was knock him out so he couldn't watch our show. He's going to miss half of it before he wakes up. But this is what WWE has been really good about lately, though, is these little things, these little breadcrumbs that make you go, oh, I am interested in seeing what happens next, as opposed to just, can they coexist? As we've seen so many times. Spoiler alert, they cannot. Speaking of people who can't coexist, The Miz is still upset about LA Knight. Nailed the segue from last week. So he says he's going to beat someone bigger than LA Knight has ever beaten next week, and just keeps this thing going. Jimmy, who do you think he's facing next week?
Oh, that's a good question. If he's talking big, do we get a Braun Strowman, somebody like that? I don't know. I just, it's got to be somebody, maybe
physically
somebody
large,
from the past. If it comes out, maybe he's talking about a bigger star.
Mm-hmm. See, I'm going opposite. I think Miz is going to beat somebody like Akira Tozawa, and he's going to then proclaim how many times Tozawa was the 24/7 champion or something like that, and that's
Or he can bring out Dylan Postal and say something like that.
Yeah, I'd be interested because Justin. I mean, he said bigger, so I initially thought it was going to be like a big person, but that's not a Miz move. Because I thought maybe it'll be Omos who returned recently, but Miz isn't going to book himself against Omos. That's crazy.
No. I think in typical Miz fashion, he's gonna line up. You know, he's gonna Gilbert. You know, he's gonna line something up.
Oh yeah.
And Stephen Camp came in with.
There we go, Stephen, right there with me.
So that'll be fun though. Again, this is one of those little fun things. I think I wasn't here last week. I thought Miz and LA Knight absolutely killed it last week. I don't, I thought those guys they're both gonna be bigger stars after it's over.
Jack, please tell me that when you're DJing, you've incorporated the into your
of course.
Did you guys see the it was shared on Twitter a couple days ago. Did you guys see that TikTok that's going around of the girl who she's complaining to her phone about like how like her husband won't stop saying this word, and it's really annoying, and like he's saying it in every context, and she's like, but he watches wrestling, so like she's like, is a wrestler like say, and then she films him, and like he's doing like all these just random things. He's talking to the dog. He's like taking the trash out. He's making dinner, whatever. And during all of it, it's he's just nonstop. Yeah.
It's so good. I don't know. It's just, it works. LA Knight, man, he's good for him. We got a match that this really kind of threw me off at first, but Trish Stratus versus Becky Lynch, not the main event. I know Twitter was a stir about them not main eventing after getting bumped from SummerSlam. Trish tries to use her mask to get an advantage, but it doesn't work. They fight for a while until they go to the outside and get counted out. The fight continues in the crowd, and then Zoe Stark gets involved because they're no longer at ringside. Mm-hmm. Later, Pierce says it's happening again in a steel cage. Justin, I don't know about you, but I feel like I'm ready for this one to wrap up. What do you think?
I mean, yeah. I mean, but I will say this. Well, when I saw the time that was being put on the show, that was peculiar to me. I'm like, this has got to be, but I didn't know how, because Zoe's banned from ringside. So I was like, all right, what kind of shenanigans are we going to get? Is there going to be a third woman introduced here? So again, I can only we're still waiting for a match to be announced for Payback. I mean, we can speculate Shinsuke versus Seth. We can speculate maybe Gable versus Gunther gets there. We can speculate LA Knight versus Miz. I'm speculating my card here in Pittsburgh, but they haven't given me anything for sure. So maybe they didn't actually say. We know we're going to see Trish and Becky again, but they did not say when. They just said that it's going to be in a cage. So maybe they do advertise that for a PLE, and we can finally get some finale. But I agree. I don't know how much more we can milk out of this one.
Yeah. I think, Jimmy, people will be happy that they're going to get a big match kind of payoff, but this one, I feel like they've run into each other about 700 times at this point.
Yeah, it felt weird too. You saw the introduction for Trish, and you know how it is up here in Canada when, regardless of whether they're heel or babyface, the Canadians get a reaction. I didn't hear that reaction for Trish, and yes, Becky did get a pop, but not the pop I was. It just felt weird, like the crowd again was not invested in this match, and for some reason. No, go ahead.
No, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off there, but it was very. I just feel like this has been drawn on. Like, I feel like we kind of know how it's all going to go down in the end, and that's okay sometimes, but you kind of need to wrap it up at some point. Where I feel like this could have wrapped up not SummerSlam, but the big show before that, like at Money in the Bank or something.
I get what you're saying, but why not even the post SummerSlam Raw?
Right.
I appreciate them. I appreciate taking gorgeous Trish Stratus and putting her behind the mask, and the face needs protecting, and then I appreciate the attempt of her being a heel and trying to have something here special with Becky. But I go back to what I think I asked you guys months ago when we saw that this is the route they're going. How many people want to boo Trish Stratus? Right. I just don't know what's there. Right. You know what I mean? And it's not to say that Trish isn't trying, and she's had some good promos along the way. So it's not like she's not invested to try to make the thing work. I just don't. I mean, she's Trish Stratus. I mean, I don't. It's just she came in and she was a good heel when she came in, but then she exploded as Trish Stratus, and he's kind of almost in that Rey Mysterio rarefied air of you're going to be hard to sell her as anything but a babyface to the crowd.
And I get wanting to see this end, but I know a lot of people are going to complain about the double count out decision here, but I thought it doesn't happen a lot. So it's okay in this situation if you're going to get that, the rivalry ending match, whatever they said with the steel cage, that stipulation. So
yeah. I think this is fine. I just think it should have happened a month ago. Yeah. is where I'm at. And as far as just I'm with you on Trish. I mean, I'll be honest, I'm rooting for Trish in this one. I know logically probably not going to go her way, but I'm rooting for Trish. I know Baby Ice is my supporter rooting for Trish in the chat. But because even Trish does things that I know are supposed to be like bad guy things, but you're right. I kind of cheer for her when she does them. I'm like, that was a good one, instead of being like, a jerk, In any case, we move on to our main event. It's Judgment Day. Throughout the night, they're upset that Finn was helping JD, but not them. And then Rhea's trying to hold things together, and JD's trying to help, but Priest chases him off, and Finn's like, look, let's get back on the same page. Let's work against Cody Rhodes. They have the main event, and eventually it all comes down to Judgment Day trying to help Finn. But again, when Damian Priest tries to help out, it only causes heartache. Cody Rhodes gets the win, and JD tries to help them when Sammy shows up, but they don't want his help, so they just handle beating up Sammy and Cody on their own. Justin, this one has been going on for a long time, but this I'm still interested in. How do you feel about this addition of JD to Judgment Day, or not addition, or this slowly boiling tension?
Well, yeah, like I said earlier when we started talking about Raw, I like the JD dynamic. I like, I like that. And I like the dynamic of going around. I thought the finish of the match very simple, easily executed. The distractions there, and Priest is going to help him, and he slides a briefcase a little bit too hard, and Cody gets it. What kind of took me out of, I don't know if it took me out, but what kind of threw me for a loop to this is that I thought, okay, this is the straw that breaks the camel's back, right? He just calls Finn again, Cody. And so I thought, and then when I saw the match ended, when I saw what time it was, they still had 4 minutes left. I'm like, okay, they've given us enough time to where we are going to see the explosion between Priest and Finn. They're going to be at each other's throats, and Rhea and Dom are going to have to take sides or pull apart, whatever. But no, what ended up happening, as you said, what ended up happening is Judgment Day stood tall. They ended up beating they continued to beat the crap out of Cody. Sammy comes out to beat the crap out of Sammy. JD's kind of looking on like he wants to be the cool kid that wants to sit at the table with them. I did not expect what happened at 10:56 Eastern time, and Finn loses the match. I did not expect 4 minutes later him to be standing strong in unison with the group. Now, I'm sure that they will address once again the miscommunication, but it felt like that ending tonight would have been the ending that then again that just boils over to. So that threw me. I did not expect that the final 4 minutes just kind of seemed a little inconsistent to me.
Yeah, Jimmy, I will say this time around, I got to blame Finn here. He should have had that briefcase. This falls on his shoulders.
Yeah, he let it go right through through the 5-hole too, as we say too. You can't let him go through the 5-hole. So, but
that's hockey, folks.
Yeah, hockey. It's a hockey reference. Thank you very much. Yes, it is. The thing I liked about JD in this situation was that confident look he had. It just felt different when he came out, and he was standing in the ring and leaning, after doing, that, giving his help, leaning on the ropes and having that confident look. That did more than his talking earlier in the night. That felt different. And, and of course, Michael Cole, the announcer's job is to help tell the story. Ladies and gentlemen, it looks like we have a united Judgment Day. Saying that at the end. Yes, they look like a united Judgment Day, but now the question is, who's leading Judgment Day? You know what I mean? It's got the questions are still there, even though they look like at the end of the night they were on the same page, at least for the end of Raw.
I like that you mentioned JD leaning there because I thought that was cool. Because usually in that situation, because he helps and they're like, "Hey, we don't need your help." Usually they do the thing where they roll the outside and kind of okay, whatever. They hold their hands up and walk away. But him leaning in the corner, kind of like, "Fine, I'll let you guys do it." I mean, I set it up, but yeah, pick up the pieces
with that confident look on his face. Just little things again.
Yeah, it was that was very interesting. But yeah, I do. This is another thing where I don't know how much longer I'm going to be on board for the slow breakup. Like they're gonna need to clash at some point. They're gonna need to hash this out at some point. But we'll see how that goes. I'm still on board for it though. Not quite like I'm ready for Trish and Becky to be finished. By the way, I missed the deal with the lemons. What's the lemon bit with Becky and Trish?
The lemon bit is it's a Becky kind of leaning into the internet and to Triple H. So when SummerSlam came, when we got to SummerSlam and they only had the 8 matches they did, and like Becky did not have a match with Trish at SummerSlam, and there's some matches that didn't happen at SummerSlam that people thought would be on the card, and so then Becky tweeted a photo of her at home SummerSlam weekend. It was her in the kitchen and she was cutting up lemons, making lemonade. Well, then cut to the post SummerSlam press conference. Triple H was prompted with a question of like, did you cut matches? There was 8 tonight, but there was, maybe and he kind of said, look, we advertise what we advertise. We know there was never any more matches that we whatever. And he even used the phrase, sometimes you just got to make lemon. You got to make lemonade out of your lemons or something, like seeming to acknowledge the picture. And so then last week, Becky was on commentary. She had lemonade for the commentators at the commentary desk, and so she's leaning into it. It would seem.
I'm just surprised nobody came out with the lemonade, that cool, refreshing drink.
That was a good. Yeah, I didn't know the whole story, but that's fun. Yeah, make lemonade out of lemons. But yeah, that's the show. This was a interesting. I want to talk about your hat, Justin. I'm gonna confess something. I have the little like timer above your head, so I can't actually see your hat in my view. But I got the Under Armour hat. Okay, cool.
Every show I have red, I have white, I have blue, I have black. I usually I have a gray with USA. I just rotate Under Armour. I did red tonight because it's Monday Night Raw, and I'm wearing some red in my AC/DC shirt here.
It's so everyone's loving your hat this week, Justin. Overall, I don't know if this is the greatest episode of Raw, but it kept me entertained. I'll be honest, I had to catch up on a lot of wrestling today, so I had wrestling on all day. So by the time Raw started, I had already been watching a lot of wrestling, so it felt kind of like a long show to me, but that's not Raw's fault. But Justin, how did you feel about this week's episode, and where can we find you online?
No, it was okay. It was what it was. Again, we got a couple weeks still to a premium love event, so they got to kind of fill some spots and some spaces. But I certainly didn't hate it. I critiqued what I critiqued, and we'll see where we go from here. At Justin LaBar across the socials, here on Monday nights, here on Wednesday nights. Most Friday mornings, I'm on Busted Open, Sirius XM, channel 156, Spar with LaBar. There it is. AC/DC is the best all-time classic. Hell yeah.
Is there an AC/DC reference I missed along the way? I love AC/DC. Oh, duh. Okay, you got it. Shook me all night long.
There you go.
Damn. I'm a Back in Black fan myself, but Jimmy, how about you? What did you think of this week's episode, and where can the world find you online?
It was okay. It had its moments, and again, like Justin said, it had stuff that you can critique. The biggest telling factor for me was, I thought, not being in Winnipeg for a long time, I thought the crowd would be a little more live, and that they were, I hate to say it, a little disappointing. They were quiet for a lot of stuff. That
maybe we know now why they don't go to Winnipeg too often.
There you go. Yeah, they don't. I go for the Pony Corral, but that's a different story altogether. But anyway, as far as where you can catch me here on Monday nights with Triple J, and on Wednesday nights after AEW Dynamite. You can catch me on the Reffin' It Up podcast with my good brother in stripes, Brian Hebner. Last week we talked to Renee Dupree. This week we got Garrett Bischoff. Who we're going to chat with, and of course, you can catch me on all my social media platforms doing my ref and rants, my critiques. It's only a minute long from Monday to Friday, and again, little critiques not to tear down, but to help tighten screws that I believe need tightening.
Well, always good to see. I can't wait to see that Garrett Bischoff interview. But thank you guys so much for joining us. Thanks for everyone in the chat. I thought it was a solid show, and you can find me at Real Jack Farmer across all social media, and you can check out my interviews with NWA champ Camille, as well as former NWA champ Matt Cardona, chatting all about the big upcoming NWA 75 on Wrestling Inc. Also got another interview tomorrow that should be pretty interesting, but I don't know if I'm allowed to say what it is, so I'm going to keep it quiet. You're going to have to keep your eyes peeled. It's going to be a fun one though. But thank you to everyone in the chat. Make sure to like, comment, share, subscribe. We got Sylvan Spector, we got Tutgraph, Killer a Demon, Dream Room Studios, Conrad Thompson. I don't know if that's the real Conrad Thompson. Conrad, if you're the real Conrad, you got to hit a like on one of my tweets just so I know it's the real you, just to make sure it's the real you. But if you're the fake Conrad Thompson, hit the like, comment, share, subscribe button too. It still counts for the same. Ricky's
I've been around the real Conrad Thompson. It's hard to fake and impersonate him. He's one of a kind.
Yes. But he's asking, well, I need to get some stuff on I do need to get some stuff on my walls, but I keep saying I'm going to decorate this wall soon enough, but it stays completely bare. I can barely get my camera to work. Yeah, give me some time. let's take it slow for a little bit. But thank you to everyone for joining us. That does it for this week. We will see you all tomorrow for the NXT after show, and make sure to follow at Wrestling Inc. Until next time.